Chapter 23, 9/11. Our whole world instantly changed on September 11th, 2001. I've been writing and rewriting my version over and over in my mind of that date since it happened. It hit us too much by surprise. Why? It should have never been allowed to happen. How did it happen? All of these questions and more have been asked by everyone. I had my theory, as did everybody. Mine was of complacency and maybe that the U.S. has been too pushy in an attempt to Americanize the rest of the world. That is in direct conflict with radical Islam, whose obvious desire is to see the whole world convert to their way of thinking. Back in 1990, during my 5th year at CNN, suddenly Iraq invaded Kuwait. Then President George Bush Sr. rallied the troops and gave the ultimatum to Iraq. We in the newsroom were inundated with covering the Desert Storm operation minute by minute. I started doing so much overtime during local field shoots since most of the field crews were in the Middle East covering the war firsthand. At the time, CNN was the only global network covering the war. As a matter of fact, it was the only global network, period. The term embedded reporter had not been invented yet. What kind of term is that? I always thought the term war correspondent worked just fine. Anyway, this war was the first to have 24-hour live worldwide coverage. Even Iraqi President Saddam Hussein was watching CNN headline news in order to get his information. For that reason, the CNN writers had to be careful on what information to reveal regarding the U.S. military strategies and positions in Iraq. The whole CNN newsroom was flying by the seat of their pants. We did the same thing during Tiananmen Square and later during the OJ trial. It was all happening so fast. This guy named Wolf Blitzer appeared on incoming satellite feeds during the Gulf War. People in the newsroom were asking, who is this guy? Pretty soon, other CNN correspondents were becoming household names. They were in viewers' homes so long that they were practically becoming family members. When they were removed, viewers freaked out and wrote letters. This is when I believe that personalities started taking on more importance to the networks than actual news reporting. Between that and the corporate downsizing, it seemed that we were in the midst of a deterioration of TV journalism with show business taking over. This, at a time when a wonderful 24-hour opportunity was surfacing. This could have been the chance for the best reporter to be brought out front at full length to do the best job possible. What a shame it was that all the company cared about eventually was downsizing. September 10th, 2001 had me, along with my wife Jolie, on a plane all day returning from Great Britain. I had been performing in England and Ireland from late August 2001. We were returning home that day on flights from Dublin to London to Atlanta, flying over Boston, New York, and Washington. After at least 14 hours flying, we were quite tired when we made our way through customs upon arriving in Atlanta around 8 p.m. The international concourse at Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson Airport looked like a football stadium crowd that had just run out into the field after a victory. The lines to get passports validated seemed endless, and the U.S. Customs officials appeared to be just mechanically stamping passports one after another without even looking at them. Just as an airport official herded a group of what appeared to be about 10 undocumented passengers through a restricted area, I mentioned to Jolie that with the way things were in that airport at that moment, it just seemed like anybody could walk into this country and do anything he wanted to at any time. In my checked luggage, I was carrying a pedal board with several guitar effects pedals attached, along with a black metal box that supplied power to the units. To the untrained eye, this piece of equipment could raise questions. If I were to have held it up for all to see, I could have shut down the airport in seconds. Imagine the response if that was done today 15 years later. I actually asked the questions out loud. Why doesn't someone go into the belly of the plane, grab my road case, open it up, and ask me what is this that I'm carrying? I thought that if I'm carrying something that is as harmless as this equipment is, but it looks so threatening, there's no telling what anybody else could be carrying. It was a very haunting thought, and as tired as I was, the thought was even more nauseating. It was about 9:15 p.m. when I looked at my watch after getting into the airport shuttle bus that evening on September 10th. Tuesday was to be my one day off before having to head out on the road for Michigan. That next morning, on the 11th, I was up doing some computer work about 8:45 a.m. I received an instant message to turn on my TV. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. There was only one tower standing. It was a sickening and helpless feeling as I watched the second tower fall. Jolie was also preparing to go to the airport again to head out of town on business the next day. She has handled many 12-hour turnarounds from one flight to the next, but on this day, I told her she wasn't going anywhere. The rest of the day was pretty much spent watching the live news coverage in disgust, anger, and grief, as was the rest of the country, if not the world. It was evident that the things I was worried about a day or two before were of no concern to me this day.